Hi, I'm Jim Barrett. Welcome to Volume 10 of the Backshop. In this video, we're going to show you quite a few things on layout construction, and in this first segment, I'm going to cover how to get your layout as quiet as possible. There's lots of ways to do that, but let me show you some of the tips that I use. We all begin with a plywood table like this, and regardless of whose track you use, and I'm going to use Gargraves for this demonstration, we generally fasten the track right to the plywood. Most of the layout noise that you hear if you go to someone's house and they're running 3 or 4 trains and it's driving you nuts, most of that is reverberation of this plywood right here. Because if you screw this directly to the plywood, you have converted the whole plywood tabletop to a drum skin, and it's going to vibrate and transmit all the sound and vibration of the trains all through the room. That'll have you screaming and running out of the house in no time. I got a couple of tips on how to make that better. One's a material called Homosote. Homosote is a pressed paper material. It's a recycled paper. It has a very good sound deadening quality because of it being a pressed paperboard. What I do is put a layer of Homosote on the plywood, and that gives that drum skin a little more density and a little more mass, as well as dampening the vibrations down to the wood. Homosote has its advantages. It's a very high density material. You can hammer on it, it won't dent. You can walk on it, you can put your palm on it, and it will still retain its shape. There is another material to use if you are sure you're going to use it where you're never going to put your hands or your feet on the layout. And that is this pink high-density styrofoam. This is made by Owens Corning. It's what you see when you're driving to work and you see a building under construction and it looks all pink for a day or two. This is the insulation they're putting on before they put on the exterior of the building. Now, the advantage of this material is it's very cheap. It's about 1/3 the cost on a 4x8 sheet of what the Homosote would be. Another advantage is it's very easy to cut and form because you can cut it just a little ways and break it off. So it makes it great if you need to cut irregular curves and things like that. Now, here's a big disadvantage, and this is why I stress that the only time you want to use this is when you never will have your weight or any kind of force or pressure on the tabletop or on the layout. If I press my thumb in here, you'll see that that dent does not recover. That means that everywhere that you press, and if you should press down on the track or next to the track, you'll create dents in the surface that are totally unacceptable over a period of time. I use this where I'm making hidden yards where it's very easy to cut for the curves, and I know I'm never going to be putting pressure on it. But what I would stress to you is on your layout, on the surface that you're going to see all the time, use the Homosote and attach it firmly to the plywood. Now, there's a couple of ways to do that. If you use wood screws or drywall screws to put it on the plywood, you really haven't accomplished much because you're retransmitting the vibration directly back to the plywood. A better way to do it is to use some carpet glue, which will form a sort of pad between the plywood and the Homosote and add even more to the deadening effect. That's how we're going to do this today. I use this stuff. It's carpet adhesive that you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot, and you've got to be careful because it is nasty, evil stuff. Even if a little bit gets on your finger, you're going to need some paint thinner and a rag to get it off right away, because it seems like there is no end to how far this will go. You'll have it on your tools, on your track, on your trains, on your layout, everywhere. So keep the paint thinner handy. You'll need it. Trowel, any kind of a putty knife like this, get a little bit of it, put it directly on the tabletop like that, and then the other tool that you need is a serrated trowel like this one. This is a 1/4-inch square serrated edge trowel, because what you want to leave are some fine lines of glue. You don't want to cover the whole thing. You want to spread it like this. And try not to get all the way over to the edge because it will seep out on the edges. So it's a good thing to try to keep it away from the edge by about a 1/2 inch. So for our little demo board here, that's probably going to be a pretty good trick since I don't have much room to spread with. But you use the end of it because there's serrated teeth on that end too, and that'll help. There we go. You've got about 15 or 20 minutes to work with this stuff once you start putting it on. All right, we've got our cement all spread evenly, and then we're ready to put the Homosote on top. And all you do is just lay it on there. And now you've got a little job to do. You need to smooth it out, but you also need to either weight this down with a few things if it's a small piece, or if you're doing, a large piece like your whole layout. I find it's a lot easier just to take some drywall screws and put them in temporarily until the glue sets and back them back out. It's very easy to do. In this case, I've got some 1 1/4 drywall screws around, but we'll just put a few in to show you how it works. And if you watch, as this draws down, you'll see the whole piece of Homosote settle into the glue. There we go. So put a few of these in. And we'll leave them there until the glue sets. Now that the glue is set, we're going to back these screws back out, because if we leave them in, we're going to be doing the same thing we would have done without the glue. We'll be transmitting the sounds right straight to the plywood. So now the layer of glue acts as a nice sound pad, as well as the Homosote. The other quality that Homosote has is it's very absorbent. When you put roadbed down, or when you put anything liquid down on here, it will drink it right up. So in order to keep from absorbing things like glue that we need to hold down roadbed with, my suggestion would be to paint the surface of the Homosote with the cheapest latex paint that you can find. I went down to Home Depot and I had them mix something that looked like a light earth brown out of the cheapest latex paint they had. By painting this Homosote surface, we're going to seal it up, and that will keep it from absorbing the glue that we'll need to adhere roadbed and other things to the layout with. All right, our paint is dried now on the surface, and the next logical progression would be to put some center lines on for the track. And just for our little demonstrator board, I'm going to put a nice center line like that, just a random center line for the track, and we'll show you what we do next. Now, rather than put the track down on the Homosote, which you could do and it would be better than just putting it on the plywood, I'm going to use a roadbed material, and I've got cork roadbed. This one's a Midwest cork, but you can use Homobed or any other type of roadbed so long as it has a split and you're able to get a center out of it. Here's what I mean by that. Here's the way the cork is packed. It has a angle slit cut in it. You just double it back like this and peel it apart. The sloping surfaces go to the outside, with the center surfaces coming up against each other like that. That's the roadbed for the track. That adds even more sound deadening quality to the final installation. So what we'll do is put some adhesive on the underside of this cork. So for that, we'll spread some newspaper out, and we'll spray the cork and put it down. I use this 3M Super 77. Once again, it's easy to get at Lowe's, Home Depots, or most hardware stores. And when you put this rubber cement on, put it on as if you were painting that cork with a spray can, just like this. And once again, if you don't paint the Homosote, you'll have to use a whole lot of spray glue, because the bare Homosote will absorb this glue and the cork won't stay in place. But by painting the Homosote, you've ensured that the glue won't be absorbed by it. I'm just going to spray it like this until I see just sort of an even creamy color all over the cork. Give it about 2 or 3 minutes for the glue to get tacky. Once you've done that, you've got about 15 or 20 minutes to work with it before it won't be tacky anymore and you'll have to recoat it. After you've let the glue set for a couple of minutes so it's nice and tacky, then we'll start laying down the roadbed. We'll begin by putting the inside center edge down against a line. Hold the cork like this with the back end up. Start somewhere on the pencil line. Press down, and it's just this easy. Just follow your pencil line, bend the cork as it goes. Now you're going to notice, if we look back up here in the front, it's already moving off the center line. So what you need to do at the ends of the cork is using a staple gun and some 9/16 staples, just anchor it at a couple of places at the beginning and end so that roadbed doesn't squeegee to one side or the other. And a couple at the finish. Once you get the first half done, don't stop, just keep right on going. Go back and get the second half of the cork and place it right up against the first half like this. And all you have to do is just go down and make it match along that same center line like we're doing here. Let's attach the front end. Now here it's starting to move out a little bit here, so we'll move that in, put one there. And then when we're done, we'll pull the staples out of the cork. Once again, we don't want any mechanical connection to the plywood or to the base. That will take about 15-20 minutes to set. Once the glue is set, just go back and pull the staples out with a Phillips head screwdriver. There we go. Now we're ready to start the track installation. There's as many different ways to attach the track to the roadbed as there are people you talk to. My best and favorite way is to use these number 4 wood screws, which are very, very small screws, and they have a countersink. What that lets you do is when you use a combination bit like this with a countersink, the head of the screw will fit nicely right into the tie. When you're done, then all you need to do is take some black paint and just touch on the top of it, and you'll never find it again. So with that in mind, we'll get this mounted up and we'll start putting our track down. We've put our first screw in to anchor the track down here, and the next thing we're going to do is start bending the track. And I get so many letters from you fellows about how hard it is to bend Gargare's flex track. I don't understand that. If you start by anchoring the track and bend it as you go, you can bend it just a little bit, adjust the ties, and then drill the hole for the next screw. I like to go about 6 or 8 inches away. And we'll put the next screw in. It's very easy to split the ties when you are drilling or when you're putting the screw in. So go slowly, don't over tighten the screw, and don't expect to do it all in one operation. Go back and adjust the ties, because the ties being smoothly adjusted on the Gargare's track is critical to a nice even bend without any kink. When you're putting the screw in, I want to remind you all that I'm using about a 3/4 inch by number 4 screw here, and we're going to go in, we're going down, but we're only going through the thickness of the cork into the homosote. We're not going to the plywood. So we're still keeping that nice even sound absorbing pad from actually being physically tied to the plywood. So let's put our final screw in this tie. Okay. Now after you've installed your first piece of track, you'll notice that the rail ends will come out uneven. If they're no worse than this, that's not a problem. We'll fix that when we install the next piece of track. If, however, you're making a long sweeping curve and they're very uneven at the ends, then you'll have to trim at least 2 of the rails somewhat even with a Dremel tool with a fiber cutoff disc. But in this case, we're just going to continue installing track, and I'll show you how we take that out. Our last piece is a very short one, so I'm going to pre-bend it just a little so that it sort of lines up. There we go. Let's get it tied into one pin, then the second one, then the third one. And now you see we've closed the gap nicely here, but these 2 are open. That's not a problem, because after we install the screws, I'll show you how we fix that. I'm going to put one in very close to the joint because I don't want that end of the track moving. And then we'll put a couple more in and finish the installation. Now all you need is a piece of scrap wood like this, and we'll start on this one that's almost all closed up, and we'll just tighten him a little bit. Just tap the end of the rail. The rail will slide through all the ties and close that gap very nicely. Let's go to the other outside rail. We'll close that one up. There we go. See how nice and tight that joint is? Let's go to the center rail. There. Now they're all closed up, but there's a little sharp burr right on the edge of each of these rails. We can fix that using the Dremel tool, the fiber cutoff disc. Set it on about half speed and hold it like a pencil and go along the top just on the outside rails and smooth that burr off of there. All right, but there's one more operation we need to do. On the insides of the two outside rails, there's a burr there where the flange would hit it. So hold the Dremel tool like this and just buff that smooth. There. Now we've got a nice smooth rail joint that won't make any noise at all. We'll put a truck on here and just roll it down through. And see how nice and smooth that is? No kinks anywhere. And especially even at this joint, even though it's in the middle of a curve, when we roll that through, you don't hear any clicks. And you don't see the wheels jumping around because it's a nice smooth transition from one rail to the next. Now here's something at first glance that you might think is a mistake, but actually it's a fix. This is another case where cork roadbed really comes in handy. In any tabletop there's uneven surfaces, and boy, we have one here. Look at this homosote and you'll see how uneven that is. If you just put cork roadbed down, it'll follow that uneven table terrain. But if you use a plane like this Surfform plane that you can get at most any Home Depot or Lowe's, or even better is a carpenter's jack plane, you can come to the area where the table's humped up and actually shave the cork down. And the thickness of the cork will compensate for the uneven table, because now when we check the table we see how uneven it is, but up on the cork it's totally flat. And not just where the tabletop's uneven, but maybe you have a situation like this where the drop door might be a little bit uneven at the joint. You can even that out with a plane too, so that you get a perfect transition all the way across the door.